preamble.
So good evening. My name is Noemi Herzig, and I'm the Director of Jewish Cultural Arts and Education at the JCC in Ann Arbor. Some housekeeping items. We are recording this session. All attendees are muted. Please use the chat feature to send in your questions. We activated the closed caption feature for you. The views expressed by Chuck Newman and his guests are their own and do not necessarily reflect the views of the Ann Arbor JCC. All previous conversation recordings can be found on the JCC webpage at jccannarbor.org. And now it is my pleasure to call on our host, Chuck Newman.
Thank you, Noemi. I'm so excited about my guest tonight, Deepak Puri. If he lived in biblical times, he would have been the guy who gave David the sling and a couple of really good stones. And he doesn't live in biblical times. So consequently, he's providing all of you Davids out there who are going up against the Goliaths with the tools you can use to succeed as well. Deepak, tell us a little bit about yourself before we actually get into Dem Labs and what you've been doing.
Oh, thanks for having me on the show, Chuck. My name is Deepak Puri. I'm originally from India. I came to the US over 35 years ago, and my wife and I live in San Francisco. We've built a good life for ourselves. And I used to work in Silicon Valley, merely chugging along, not paying much attention to politics. And then all of a sudden, things changed in 2017. And my wife and I decided we need to step up and do something. And that's how we started a small non-for-profit called Democracy Labs. It's very small, it's self-funded, and I've been doing this for 6 years now, and I love every minute of it. What our premise was, what can we do to help, given that the dark forces do better messaging and use of technology? Like Chuck said, how can we help the little Davids fight Goliath? And we figured better technology and better storytelling is what we focus on.
Why did your parents decide to leave India and come to the United States?
My parents are still in India. My dad passed away, but I moved here basically, I always grew up thinking, oh yeah, America is the land of opportunity. And I came here for a better future. I was lucky to, meet the love of my life and got married and settled down here. But I came to America to build a better future. And coming from a very middle-class family, America has been very good to us. And part of what I do is my way of giving back.
What's been your biggest surprise from the relatively naive, I presume, Deepak back in India, now that you've been here for 35 years?
Surprise in what sense?
About the United States.
It's everything that you wish for, because it's given me opportunities I wouldn't have had in India. But on the downside, there's certain things which are good and bad in India. And what surprises me now is so many of the things that we read about in the news about the rich and powerful getting away with all kinds of stuff seems very reminiscent of India in a sense. And so there's been pleasant surprises and a drift towards things which are not pleasant. So that's my short answer.
Have you ever thought of going back, not necessarily permanently to India, and doing Dem Labs India?
Absolutely not. Because my belief is I can make a bigger impact here. plus my whole family and friends are here. And I think it's kind of like, it's a call to duty, which is the easy way out is to say, hey, things are not well, so I'm going to pack up my bags and go somewhere else. Like we have friends who say after every election, oh, if so-and-so happens, we're going to move to Canada. No, that's not the way to do things. If you believe in it, you have to kind of stick around and do whatever little you can. So the answer to your question is no.
So why don't you describe, I want to clarify one thing in case anybody missed that. Deepak pays for this out of his own pocket, basically, and that you're the one who's doing 90% of the work, 99% of the work.
No, correct.
When you see some of his blogs, which you're going to very shortly, you realize how skilled you are in the use of technology. It's very impressive. And but this is not your only pro bono volunteer justice work, correct? You've also been active elsewhere, although not in the same way. Where are some of the other places that you volunteered to help out?
Correct. Like actually combining two of the previous two questions, which is, I believe all of us, especially people on the call, we all have certain gifts that we've been given, whether it's a writer or a lawyer or a journalist or whatever. We all have our own unique skills. We have our own networks, and how we apply them to make a difference is up to each one of us. I believe, and I had quite a successful career in Silicon Valley, and I believe my gift is basically understanding businesses and people's needs and applying technology to make a difference. And with that, a lot of the non-for-profit work that I've been doing, there's a wonderful organization called IESC, I'll put that in the chat window, which stands for International Executive Service Corps. And what they do is that it's created by the State Department, and they send volunteers overseas to apply their skills in different countries. So I've done volunteer trips in Panama, Ukraine, Romania, always applying technology to solve the problems in that local community. Another one which was kind of very moving to me was about 5 years ago, I went on a volunteer trip to Lesbos. Lesbos is an island, which is part of Greece. And what was happening was a lot of the refugees from Syria who were desperately escaping the fighting would go up through Turkey and then take a dinghy over to Lesbos. So this non-for-profit I was helping would receive those refugees, give them food and shelter, and then send them on their way to Greece or Sweden, wherever they wanted to go. So that was really moving.
I think you related to me a story about a particular gentleman from Syria. Did you, or was that a different occasion? I think that's worth retelling.
Yeah, I think all of us, I see some of us, like, we're all warm and comfortable in our houses, having our meals on Sunday evening. So in Lesbos, what had happened was these refugees, as you can imagine, they've gone hundreds of miles across Turkey. They've crossed the ocean in a little dinghy. By the time they get to Lesbos, they are in desperate straits. The only thing they have is pretty much what they're wearing. So there was a food camp where we would hand out packets of meals, which consisted of a cup of rice, a boiled egg, and a banana. And so that's what they would get for the meal. So while this was going on, this gentleman started crying, and as he was getting his meal, and one of the volunteers asked him, like, what happened? Why are you crying? And he said that he had a successful business in Damascus, and he employed 30, 40 people. And then when the bombs started flying, he and his family had to get out of there in a hurry. And now he was at the mercy of other people. And he said in his own way, he said, it goes to show one day you could be a successful businessman doing well, and the next day you are grateful that someone gave you a banana, and that just kind of got to him. And we realized, like, it's little things like that which kind of indicate to you how fortunate we are in our lives here. And I'd also shared with Chuck one other anecdote I'll just kind of mention quickly, is after they'd recovered in the food camps, in the shelters, we would help them to get on the ferry to go to Athens. So it was like maybe 200 yards. These families would get on a bus, we'd take them to the port, and then the volunteers would help the refugees carry their belongings. And it was only what they had in their hands to the ferry. So I was helping this lady with her kids go those 200 yards. And this other volunteer came up to me and said, like, are you guys all a family? And I said, no, I'm a volunteer too. But if you look at me, I could easily be one of those refugees. And like the saying goes, like, there, but for the grace of God, go I. So going back to what Chuck said, like, I enjoy what I do at Dem Labs, and because I think we are all fortunate, and being able to apply the skills that we've accumulated in some way to give back is a very enjoyable experience.
We could spend the hour just learning about you personally, but I'm sure most of the people on this call they want to know how they can apply your knowledge, or at least get a better understanding of what technology you are offering out there to folks who are trying to solve problems. So I encourage anybody who has a particular problem that their organization is trying to solve, that might have a technical solution, to put that in chat. And as time permits, Deepak will address them as best he can. So maybe a good idea would be for us to see one of your blogs.
Sure. So I'm going to share my screen. And so this is hope. Can you see this, Chuck?
Yep.
Okay. So I'll kind of dig into it, but let me just share. So as over the last 5 years, what we've been doing is working with different groups, and actually quite a few in Michigan as well, including SWIM, which is statewide Indivisible Michigan, NAACP in Kalamazoo, and so on. But the issues that we hear about from groups is, how do I find the people I'm trying to help? How do I tell my story? How do I get them to take some action? And then also, how do I counter disinformation and what else is going on? So those are the kind of problems that we encounter. And here's something which you should know about, which is 90% of everything on this website, the solutions are free. I'll repeat that. These are solutions that exist out there. These are not things that I developed. But someone says, like, I want to know how I can get my message heard. Well, my goal is to kind of show people what can be done. Here's one, for instance, which is done with a free app. So what I'll do is I'll kind of explain the app and I try and use pictures and images, and all the content is freely shared. And I tell people, you can use these tools yourself. So for instance, this one is from a free app called Infogram. And so what I'll do is I'll show people, this is what's going on, I use this to illustrate the GOP agenda. But if you want to take this and use it to articulate something like, here are the issues with Medicare in Michigan, or this is what you can do to keep your children safe. So creating an infographic is one example. And it's not just a picture, because behind this, there are more details that you can get into. So I find the tools, I explain how I use them, I try and feature them in a case study, and then I tell people how they can do it themselves and find the tools or the apps that I use. I can and there's now, believe it or not, over 1,000 blogs, and I kind of break them out.
Wait a minute, 1,000 blogs. You said 2017 you started this?
Correct.
So that's like 200 blogs a year,
Correct. And now the frequency has gone up.
and you're doing them basically yourself.
Correct.
Yeah, okay.
Um,
Just want to make sure my math was right. So,
no, it's a labor of love, and I enjoy it. And because going back to your analogy of David and Goliath, I think is a very apt one, because you have to believe that some people who have more money and more resources know how to use technology, and they can hire people. Our goal is to help the activists, the grassroots folks, do a better job. They're the Davids taking on the Goliaths. My job is to help find the best stones and show them how to use the little slingshot in the best possible way to take down Goliath. And each of these blogs, think of it as a little pebble. Here are the pebbles you use in this situation and that situation. Like, I'll show you one, which this is from this morning, which kind of illustrates a lot of things. One is, I'll pick a topic which is current, because this one really got me agitated. For those of you on the call who don't know, the Republicans in Iowa are trying to prevent people on food stamps from buying meat. This is at the same time they're giving tax cuts to wealthy people in Iowa. So what I'll do is, I'll kind of take a topical issue and I'll explain what is going on, and I'll use a lot of cartoons, because I figure cartoons are a great way to synthesize an issue and people can relate to it. But
Deepak, where do you get your cartoons from?
Oh, I get the cartoons from a wonderful group called politicalcartoons.com. And they have a special program, like I've licensed them, but they've also offered to give it at a steep discount to other people. It's a wonderful, wonderful resource. And I would highly recommend people look it up. It's politicalcartoons.com, and it's by a gentleman by the name of Daryl Cagle. I'll put that in the chat window as well.
Thank you.
So what I'll do is the cartoons cover a lot of topics, and there's thousands of cartoons on his website, and I'll use that to kind of illustrate my point. Now here, what I wanted to show is, don't be taken in by just the cartoons and you might think, well, this is kind of trivial. No, my approach to this is to make things understandable. And the topic of today's blog is, and it could apply just as easily in Michigan, is, all right, with food stamps getting cut, or the meat being cut, how do I find which counties are going to suffer the most? And then what I want to do is find out in those counties, which are the people who don't vote, and then also which ones are unaffiliated. So the Republicans in Iowa are saying, we're going to deny poor people the ability to buy meat and cheese and bread. Well, okay, which of the communities are going to suffer? And as an activist, I want to target those folks saying, you guys, you know what your political reps are doing? How many of you didn't vote? And how many of you are unaffiliated? So I kind of explain how it's done. And these counties, which are highlighted in green, indicate almost 6% of the population in this county is on food stamps. About 40% of them are independent, and 10% of them don't vote. in addition to that, I also explain, here is the political rep for your county. And here is his phone number or her phone number. And with one click like this, I won't do it right now, it's late on Sunday, but it launches a phone call right away. So the purpose of the blog, just to kind of go back, is, I'll make it simple, I'll make it interesting to the best of my ability, I'll keep it short. And then what I do is I try and explain, like here, what I did was I explained, okay, we want food stamp users, people who aren't affiliated with the party, and so on. And this is how you do it. And this is the tool. And if you need a hand, I'll help you pro bono, or you can do it yourself. There's no monetary angle in this, but anyway, let's go back.
By that, do you mean that if someone wanted to use these tools, they were free?
Yeah, most of them are free. This one that I use for this is from a company called ESRI, E-S-R-I, which is in the blog. And the license to that costs about $200 for a year. Because I make 4 assumptions. The people we're trying to help have very little money, very little time, very little skills, and very little staffing. So the solution has to meet that criteria.
So can you illustrate some of the other technologies, perhaps the one with the avatars?
Oh, yeah, sure. So one of the approaches that we did was like a lot of the content has moved towards videos as the format, because people are, here's the one with the avatars. A lot of people do not have time to read long articles. Videos, audios, podcasts are a great way. And then how does a small group create a video? So we found this app called Synthesia. And what it does is, like, take a look at these 2 folks here. These people are not real. They're called avatars and they're computer generated. So what it allows a non-for-profit group to do, say, for instance, in Michigan, there's a large Arabic community, and you want to produce a video in Arabic. So here, watch this. So you simply go in and you write down your script of what it is you want to say. And I can't speak Arabic, but I'll tell you what's going on. Listen to this lady.
هذه رسالة مهمة للآباء. تأكد من حصول طفلك على ختم المشاركة.
Now, one thing you'll notice while she's talking, I paused it for a moment, is notice her face, her mannerisms, her smile. That is all computer generated. All I had to do was type in what I want her to say, and the backdrop is stuff which I've kind of picked off a catalog. And this app is about $30 a month. But no, I'll let it play, but notice her face movements and speech, and then the backdrops change. I picked an Arabic family here. I'll just let it
هذه
play.
رسالة مهمة للآباء. تأكد من حصول طفلك على ختم المشاركة في ولاية كاليفورنيا. يمنح هذا البرنامج طفلك الفرصة ليكون شريكاً نشطاً في تغيير المدرسة. تعلم المزيد على موقع.
So and then it can include calls to action on the back. And I'll just play a clip of another one just to show you how flexible it is. So here, you'll notice I just typed in what I wanted her to say, pressed a button, and out comes the video. This, by the way, is on our website. So you can check this out at leisure, because the content that I'm showing you is all public. And my goal is to kind of help people understand the tools, and then all right, I put it in the chat window. So let's just take a quick look at this and we can move on.
这是给父母的重要信息，确保您的孩子获得。
So what you'll notice, in addition to the language being different, the avatar I picked is different for each. The backdrop in the Chinese looking family. So it's possible for activists and organizers to create content that they can share quickly in their preferred language, for a few dollars. And this is all done on a computer, so there's no equipment or skills needed.
About how many different languages and avatars are there through Synthesia?
There's about 80 different avatars, all kinds of folks, and about 200 languages. And so even in English, for instance, there is about 40 different types of English: American, British English, so on. You want male, female, young, old. So it looks very authentic, or comes across as very authentic. So you can pick. And even there's about 10 different types of Indian languages. Like here's another example where a group was trying to illustrate the damage from cash bail and how it is that African Americans suffer the brunt of this. So here,
Cash bail frees the rich before a trial, but jails the poor.
so again, just to point out, like the backdrops can be changed. You just pick from a catalog, and they're royalty free, so you don't have to worry about it. You can put your own text messages on top. It looks quite professional. And because these are the kind of tools that, you cannot compete with the likes of Fox. They have so much resources and so on and so forth. But if activists in their own community could produce a message that, hey, this is why the water poisoning in Kalamazoo is so terrible for the community, and put it out in different languages. Here's the same version in Spanish with a female spokesperson. Because getting heard and kind of countering the narrative from the other side is really important. And how do you do that with very little money? Anyway, so let's go on unless anyone has questions.
Well, how long does it take to put together one of these?
It takes literally about an hour, because all you have to do is 4 things. You create this, like this is the script that I created. This is what I want the person to say. I pick the avatar, I pick the language, and then I can overlay the text on top, and then I hit press. So
La
watch.
fianza en efectivo libera al RIC antes de un juicio, pero encarcela a los boberos.
And if you look at the avatar, what kind of freaks me out is they're so lifelike and natural. And which brings up an interesting question. My wife was saying that, Deepak, do we want to be promoting this technology because it could also be used for disinformation and propaganda? So 3 points on that. One is the bad guys already know this technology and they use it. Second, the software company that produces this, Synthesia, they have a moderation feature which prevents, they won't let you publish anything which is racist, pornographic, or hate crime oriented. So they have those filters. And my final point is, if the medium of choice is videos, activists need to be able to kind of create their own. And if they can do so quickly for very little money, it's worth them knowing about. So this is just one of 3 different tools which we talk about, which can be used to create videos.
I
The
want to clarify one thing. When you talk about the backgrounds in a catalog, that catalog is provided by Synthesia, correct?
Correct. And again, like I said, it's free. So for the people on the call, as you're looking for solutions, like I get confused myself. So I broke it out into different categories. So this one was under video creation. And there's I don't want to kind of just focus on this, but the idea being, here is a video created using another app called Lumen 5. And I love this movie, but let me just play this video, which is created with Lumen 5.
I said it before and I'll say it again. Life moves pretty fast. You don't stop and look around once in a while, you could miss it.
So that's done with Lumen 5 and iMovie. But what I do in the blog is kind of explain, this is how you use the tools. This is how you get your message heard. And so here, notice how I kind of spell it out, because I assume that the people who are going to be using these tools are not technical to begin with. And what I also do is explain, if someone has a project and needs help, Dem Labs will help them free of charge, because I think, again, I love your analogy about David versus Goliath. If we all got better at throwing the stones more precisely with more force, and we bring down more Goliaths, the better off we all will be.
I love it when you say Dem Labs will get back and help. I think we're hearing from Dem Labs.
Correct.
As I said earlier, I know that there are folks here who are concerned about dark money. Could we?
Yeah.
I saw that was one of your categories.
Correct.
First of all, why don't you show how you would find, how one would find, okay, so you go to solution types and the first one happens to be dark money.
So there's dark money. There's also like issue areas. So for instance, here, I've kind of broken it out on different topics. These are potential solutions. And I can also search by keyword. So any blog with that word in there. Okay, so here's an interesting one. Follow the dark money behind the Jewish candidate. So here is our friend Jared Santa. So, all right. So now I want to see, where is he getting his money from and what's going on? So the app that I use for this is something called Kumu. And normally most of the apps, here, I'll put this in the chat window too. He is an amazing character. And I think there's going to be a lot more interesting stuff that comes out about him, which is just speculation on my part. But this is what I know so far. So, and again, this is all using public information. There's nothing secret about this. So what happens is this app, which is called Kumu, it's free. And if I click on someone, because it's almost like a detective story. How do I, and people are naturally inquisitive, because I myself, I don't have the patience to read long articles, but I'm curious about this guy, so I can click on him. I can see what's going on. That's his sister, by the way. And then, oh, what's he doing? Who's this guy? Andrew in Trader. Oh, well, he's so-and-so, and he's linked to Victor Veckelsberg. Oh, and then he also gave money to, who did he give it to? Oh, Michael Cohen. And what did Michael Cohen use it for? Oh, he used to pay off Stormy Daniels, and so on and so forth. So I can go in and it's all linked to details, because the Goliaths of the world don't want you to be knowing what they're up to. And if we can kind of take the money flow and saying, no, I'm not buying that. This is who is paying off who, and I'm going to let people figure it out for themselves, because don't take my word for it. Like, who's this Tina Forte? Well, this is her connections. And what I'll do is I'll include links to more details. And you can create this for yourself, because I think there's a couple of groups we're working with in Michigan who are curious about the money that's flowing through some of the political campaigns there. So you can create your own. This probably takes about half a day. But once you've created it, you can share it freely. And like the saying goes, sunlight is the best disinfectant. Because what I tell folks is take the material and you can then use it to share freely, because the goal is not to be possessive about it. But notice down here, I'll say, take this link and share it freely. If you want to embed it in a website, this is how you do it, because we've got to get the message out to more people in an interesting way, and technology can help do that.
One of the things I know people are really interested in is tracking how their elected representatives are voting, and then seeing who donated to those representatives who might indeed have an interest in seeing that they voted in that way.
That's a good one. So
Got anything on
here,
that?
sorry?
Do you have any blogs that
Yeah.
address part of that?
Actually, sure. Let's just kind of take a look at it. So here, for instance, okay, follow the gun lobby donations. So here what we did was, who are the people? Why is it that with all these shootings going on, something hasn't been done to pass an assault weapon ban? So, I try and kind of, which is who's blocking it and who's paying them off. So again, I created this, again, using Kumu, and here what I wanted to do was twofold. Who is voting against the gun lobby, the assault weapon ban, and how much are they getting paid? So let's look our friend, Ron Johnson, who is close to Michigan. All right. And then over here, there's a wonderful website called Open Secrets. Open Secrets gives you details of, I think it's opensecrets.org. I think it's down here. Because what you'll have to accept is the information is out there, but it's in a lot of different websites, and people don't necessarily have the time or patience to put things together. So what a story map does is you can create it, make it simple for them to follow along. Here is I'll put this in the chat window too. I really like this opensecrets.org website because they collect, this is from federal elections reports. I noticed someone said, who can see, how accurate is the information you are presenting, and has it all been checked? I use public information websites, and I kind of provide links to it. And again, to the best of my knowledge, it is correct, but I kind of explain in the blog that people should check for themselves. But the idea is to spread, provide useful resources. And what you said, Chuck, about voting records, that's laid on behind this, because these are the folks who have voted against the assault weapon ban.
Can we see that again?
Sure. So for instance, here, I'll show you another one where it's, here are the donations.
Okay.
And-
Hold on. And these are donations from whom?
Donations from the gun lobby.
Got it.
And back here, there was another one which is kind of related to that, which is, see, for instance, a group is kind of upset that there's been a lot of mass shootings, and you want to contact your elected official to let them know that you're not happy with what they're doing. So what we designed was, it creates a map which shows you who is the elected representative in your community and how you can get a hold of them quickly. I'll just bring that up real fast. Okay, so here, mapping the mass shootings till January 23rd, and the senators blocking a ban on them. So here, there's two sources of information, because people are always interested in what's happening in their community. And so what I did was, each of these dots, let's see which one's closest to Michigan, or let's say Chicago. Indiana, okay. So here's an incident of mass shooting that took place on New Year's Eve. Down here is the source of information, which is gun violence archives, how many people were killed and so on. And then back here, if you wanted to call the state attorney general, you simply click on this link and it will dial the phone number. So though that's kind of so two tools. One is gun violence archives, which kind of has the data on this. Public records on who voted for or against the bill and presented in a way that's easy to see. And if anyone wanted to scan this QR code, it launches the map right away. I'll put this in the chat window. So, you know, I could go on like this, Chuck, for a long time, but I know we're kind of we have 15 minutes left roughly, I believe. So I'll defer to you on if there's questions or.
Sure. You've referred to a source, a great source for who voted to block or who blocked the ban on assault weapons.
Mhm.
What if I had a different issue in mind, like, well, whatever, a piece of legislation that I had an interest with? How could I could I find which of my representatives voted for and against it?
There's two levels. One is if it's something at the state house level, for instance, the bill today about this food stamps. So if I went under Michigan, I would find out, like, for instance, this bill, which is bill number 3, I believe. Here, this House file number 3. This is a public record from legislative.iowa.gov. So if someone did a Google search to say, what are the bills that have been approved and who voted for them in Michigan or any other state, there's different sites which do this kind of provide this information because it's public information. Similarly, there's one for Congress and there's one for Senate. The issue that you bring up is a good one, which is there's two things happening. One is, what is the bill? In this case, it was food stamps will not be used to buy meat. Second, who introduced that bill? Who voted for it? Third thing is, which are the communities that are going to get hurt? And the fourth thing is, how do I get a hold of my state house Congress rep to tell them, hey, I don't appreciate what you're doing. And as a final thing, what I did was I added a link, which was, how do I register to vote? Because what helps is trying to explain, this is what they're doing to you. These are the people who are doing it. This is who's donating to them. And if you don't like it, read about the bill and then go register to vote. So you want to kind of complete the arc as fast as possible.
And I know you did it for the folks in Iowa on the restrictions on the food stamps. But do you have anything else on how one could find one's constituency that is a constituency that you would like to target for whatever purposes?
Yeah. So for instance, if you look under because it varies state by state and for the Senate as well, I can forward you the individual links or they can be Googled. But one thing which you just reminded me of, which we've done a few in Michigan as well, and this is something I believe your listeners should be aware of, which is we work in this group called Sisters of Hope in Kalamazoo, Michigan. What they were doing was when they found lead in the pipes, they wanted to give people bottles of water, but then people were lining up in their cars and it'd take a long time to get in, get them cleared, and it was cold and freezing. So you can create, like, I'll use the example of McDonald's. You remember how, like, you go in and you place your order, and by the time you get to the counter, they've got your food ready for you? Similarly, what these folks did was, because people would be sitting in their cars because they fill out the forms by hand, they simply created a code. And while you're waiting in your car, like maybe 100 yards from the church where you get your water, it'd ask you a few questions. Where do you live? How many bottles of water do you need? How many kids do you have? So by the time you got to it, all the information was there, and they'd say, all right, Mr. Newman, here's your crate of water. And in the process, they were collecting details on the people and setting up, this is called a chatbot. You can use it to collect information on the communities that you're serving. And for instance, when people were getting evicted, would you like to get a form that you can file a claim? All kinds of wonderful things, because it gives an organizer the ability to help the people in their community, and at the same time, collect details about them for the future so that you can then start organizing them.
As you were scanning through there, I saw one just above. It said something about booth door hangers with QR codes to get more responses. That's of interest to me.
So here's the thing, which is when, like, this is from our movie Napoleon Dynamite, which is, I have a queer sense of humor, I've been told. So what happens is, when you have a door hanger like this one, you want to get people to respond quickly. And so here, when they scan it, it asks them a series of questions, and you can use that questions to provide them information. So for instance, in Kalamazoo, or like wherever you're canvassing, you can hang a door hanger, but people may see it or may not see it, but you attach information or something of value to them and encourage them, hey, scan this, and you can get this, or you can find out about that. And then all this is set up with a bot. The bot, setting up a bot is about $100, but it runs, all day long and collects information for you. Here's an example of something we did with Black Voters Matter, which is what they wanted to do outside schools. They said, would you like to know what to do in the event that there's a mass shooting, active shooter at school? What tips can you give your child? And so this bot basically asks them for their name and their zip code, and then sends them, here's a series of tips to keep yourself safe. And as you can tell, the message or the information you give them is targeted towards their specific need. But in the process, you are collecting a lot of information very fast, very affordably.
Obviously, it's a totally automated process.
Yeah.
Neat. Well, do you have a favorite of all time blog?
Oh boy, that's a tough one.
Well, one of.
Okay, like let's just pick one at random, or if you see something on the screen that tickles your fancy, let me know. Because the problems like are okay, here's all right, so this is from Austin Powers, and I have to apologize for my sense of humor, but
No, not with me, and the rest of them. Oh, the hell with them.
all right, so the thing is, like, people are busy, they don't have much time or attention, so you want to kind of take your message and information, package it in a form that's convenient. So here, people kind of said, look, the way Kavanaugh got confirmed to the Supreme Court, everything was rushed, and a lot of leads that came in weren't even followed up on. So what we did was, we basically picked 10 of them, and I kind of put it under Dr. Evil. If you're going to do a sham investigation, here's how you do a sham investigation. And then each of these tips is linked to an individual article. This is not Deepak making up this stuff. This is from publications which are reputed. But I've packaged the information in a convenient form and made it easy to share. And I think the more people so here, I'll just copy this link, put it in the chat window. So this is one of my, each one is a favorite, Chuck. Like that's like, which of your kids do you love the most? And it's hard to say. In my case, we have one daughter, so I love her the most, but the blogs are, never ending.
It's a simple answer. You just say whichever one you're talking to at the time.
Yep. So check out Dr. Evil's guide. But again, the 4 big areas that we focus on is how do you find the community and collect information about those people you want to organize? Second one is how do you get your message to them? And the third one is how do you get them to mobilize and get out to vote? So those are the 3 big areas. And under each one, there are different tools. What I would suggest is the blogs are coming out regularly because as new ideas emerge, I kind of write about them. And if you have something which you feel, hey, I'm struggling with this, I don't know how to do it. Is there a solution out there? And what I'll try and do is if we haven't solved it already, I'll look for solutions which are available because businesses develop these solutions day in, day out. All I try and do is find the best pebble out there and say, hey guys, here's a pebble that you might want to use, and we'll share it freely with other folks as well. That's what I do.
Were there any particular topics in chat that anybody want us to cover? It's difficult for me to see them at time. Well, why don't you, if you have any questions, why don't you just raise your hand right now? And I think there's a function for that.
Yes. There's a function on the reaction on the bottom of your screen. On reactions, just click there and raise your hands and we'll call on you.
Right. Well, I noticed one question, which was about copyright issues for photos. I think that's really important. I'll mention a couple of websites which are provide royalty-free photos. And then there's one which this one is useful for getting icons, but you have to respect the copyright laws. And I use these sites regularly. Political cartoons, they provide, they have a free version and they have a small licensing fee. The tools that like Lumen 5, they have a catalog of royalty-free videos and audio photos. And if you use those, they've already taken care of the licensing rights. And then what I would do is, I'm not a lawyer, but people should read this clause about fair use. So I'll leave it at that, but respect the privacy and the copyright provisions of others. Use these tools which provide royalty-free photos and videos. Those are a good start.
Have any of these tools seen wider adoption among the candidates and some of the Goliaths, if you will?
Here's the other thing which kind of surprised me is a lot of these tools are what are called freemium, and businesses like Microsoft, Adobe, Google, and so on provide tools, and many of them are free up to a certain level of usage. Beyond that, you have to pay, but for most activists, the free tier is enough. We've tried to reach a lot of professional campaigns, but the big challenge that we have, and this is a request to the people on the call, is if you're, there's a saying, a person will never understand if it's not in their interest to understand. And if your living is made by selling software, the last thing you want to do is tell your candidate about a free piece of software, which is kind of perverse. But so the biggest challenge we have is lack of awareness. And so what I would say is we try and reach candidates, we'll help anyone, and the information is on our blog, and the tools are not mine. So if you know of group, and I think Demcast does a wonderful job in trying to spread the good word, but if you know of groups, activists, organizers, volunteers who are looking for ideas or resources and don't have money to spend, tell them, hey guys, check this out. Because they can see the website, get the tool, and they don't have to talk to me. I have no skin in the game. And the nice thing is these tools come from big software companies who are going to be around long after all of us are gone. But the sooner we adopt better technology, the more Goliaths we can bring down. So to answer your question, Chuck, we've tried to reach candidates, but the political consultants who are firewalls in front of them do a really good job in keeping control of the situation.
Yeah, I have many occasions, including now, to point out that in Michigan in the last presidential election, Democrats and other progressive organizations spent between $400 and $500 million alone in that election. And yeah, there are things that be done better. Deepak, we really need to thank you so much for who you are as much as for what you do. And I have a feeling that a very high percentage of the people who tuned in tonight feel like they just had a drink out of a fire hose.
I'm sorry.
No, it's just there's so much there. So I recommend that you go to thedemlabs.com, review the material.org, review the materials there, and then reach out to Deepak with your questions. And as you heard him say more than once, he'd be happy to help you however he can. Our next guest in 2 weeks, continuing the trend of no two are alike, is Dr. Phil Zazoff. He recently retired as the head of the family medicine department at the University of Michigan. And if his story doesn't inspire you, there's something wrong with you, because he's profoundly deaf. And the obstacles he had to overcome to become the beloved doctor that he was and still is, in some sense, are enormous. So, as I said, that's in 2 weeks, and hope to see many of you there. So with that, good night. Those of you who are football fans can go see how the football game's going. And thanks for tuning in.
Thank you so
Thank you.
much. Okay.
Thank you.
Good night.
Bye-bye.